Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, we're going to be reviewing those two big games that took place over the opening weekend. Newcastle running away 5-1 winners after demolition job on Aston Villa there. And of course, the big one, that one which everyone is talking about, Chelsea coming away with a 1-1 draw versus Liverpool. Now, joining me this evening to review these two matches and, of course, to talk everything EPL, we have returned into the podcast, Leon.
Nice to be back, viewers and subscribers. Long time we have been waiting for this return of Premier League football, and we finally got it.
Yes, Leon, some big matches taking place over the weekend, and the biggest scoreline we saw was that one. Newcastle 5-1 winners over Aston Villa. How did you see that game, Leon? I mean, to me, that was like a shocking scoreline, considering, the position Aston Villa finished last season, and of course, Newcastle as well. 5-1.
I, I mean, I was astonished to somewhat, but it's expected. It's not expected because, as you know, both teams have massive transfer windows. Aston Villa had had some good moves, also Newcastle, but I think with Aston Villa's way of playing, I think it was always gonna be that result is always a result around the corner because, as you know, Aston Villa plays with a very high line. I think the centre back pair was on the halfway line, and with Newcastle lineup of Isaac, Almiron, Barnes, Wilson, full of speed, there's a slight
Garden
margin
as
for
well.
error. Yeah, Garden as well. There's a slight margin of error, and they weren't getting any offside traps this match. And as you can see, the scoreline was 5-1, and it could have been worse.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it was an interesting game for me though, Leon, because both teams started off well, I would say, inside the first 20 minutes. Newcastle scored, went ahead, and then of course the new signing, as you mentioned, Diaby on the score sheet again. And at that point it was 1-1. But from there, it was all Newcastle. We saw a few individual errors from a few Aston Villa players. One standout is that one from Kansa, but
Yeah.
as you say, it was a very high line being held by the Aston Villa defenders. And I found it shocking because time and time again, that high line was being exposed by the speed merchants that Newcastle has on their flanks, Almiron and Gordon, especially in the first half, along with Isak.
Yeah, I think it's been exposed. I mean, I saw relatively a lot of matches last season where it has been exposed, but Unai Emery has been very stubborn with that high line. It doesn't matter how many times it has been exposed, he keeps on persisting with it, even when the scoreline keeps on climbing. And as you said in the first half, in the first part, I think it was a very even match. I think Aston Villa was looking to target the flank with Leon Bailey and Diaby. As you can see, there's a lot of chemistry there because they were past teammates. And I think for
Yes.
Newcastle, I think their midfield is a very strong area. With Bruno Gamares and Joe Linton, you're going to get a lot of fight in there. And plus,
Yeah.
their new signing, Tonali, made gave a good account of himself.
Very good account. I would say almost man of the match performance, if not for the exploits of Isaac. But yeah, Tonelli, that midfield tree of Newcastle really has something cooking right there. Right now, based on how that midfield look, I mean, if they can all stay injury free, I would not count a top four finish out of the equation. That look like a very good, solid
Very,
midfield tree, with qualities of those players which complement each other. There's no out and no defensive midfielder in terms of, let's say, a tackler or, that player who breaks up the play, but they are all very good technical players and they give a little of everything, good passing, good movement, good strength, tackling, interceptions. It's a very balanced midfield trio right there. And with the likes of Isaacs and Wilson up front, wow, this Newcastle team, early guns out. They have laid down an early marker there, Leon, and a 5-1 victory over a potential European challenger. I mean, it sends a very clear message to the rest of the EPL teams that Newcastle is not here to play and they're definitely looking to compete on all fronts this season. And we
I
also saw a few Aston Villa casualties as well, with Mings picking up what seemed to be a long-term injury.
yeah, I think yeah, Mings, I think he has an ACL. I think it looks like an ACL. Whenever you see a player go down without physical contact, it's always a possibility that it's a lot of damage and
Yeah, that's it. It seems like that's the end of his season before it even started, and we see Paul Torres coming in. Uh Technical enough, but to me, he's gonna struggle with the physicality of those big number nines in the EPL. I think he needs to strengthen up, but very good with the ball at his feet. But in terms of the actual defending, it's yet to be seen. I'm gonna hold my breath on that one and see how the season plays out with him now being thrust in the four. He seemed to be, ahead of Douglas. I mean that Brazilian
yeah.
Carlos currently. So it seemed to be possibly a Consa Torres pairing as the centre back first choice with no Mings out injured.
I think with Paul Torres, I think Unai Emery had him at Villarreal, so he's quite very knowledgeable when it comes down to how to use him. But I think Trent, in the Villarreal backline or how they defended, they defended in a low block, and he's very astute in that position. But with how Aston Villa plays with that high line, I think he'll struggle, to be honest, because he's not that quick. And as
Right.
you said, he's not that's like physically, it's not one of his strong suits. He's very good with the ball,
Very
and I think
technical.
even very technical. And I think even in that match, you saw Unai Emery resulted into a back three at one point with Diego Carlos. So probably that's another way for him to like cover some deficiencies in there
That's right.
because Kansa is also very prone to a mistake also. And I
I
think the
and we saw that coming out in this game as well. Plus, at times he can become very erratic also. It reminds me somewhat of a low, just diving into challenges without thinking too clearly. But it's early season though, Leon, so we can't really draw any big conclusions from this loss. But to be honest, I could not help but remember Gerard. I thought under Steven Gerrard, I know it's the first game, but this Aston Villa team has a way of going to sleep until
uh,
something wakes them up, whether it's a managerial change or something massive. I mean, as I said, it's just the first game. We can't get carried away. But while I was watching that game, the Aston Villa team reminded me of how the team under Gerrard played. Big name players giving effort but not getting results, and it cost Gerard his job. And I am hoping that Emery doesn't go down that route with all these new players that has to be integrated into the team. It may take a while for these players to gel, and that's one thing we know EPL managers rarely have these days, and that's time to get the players up and running. I even see Leon Bailey being hooked at halftime as well. What's going on with Bailey there, Leon?
to me, I think Bailey in the starting lineup right now is very lucky. I think Buendia, based on preseason, was the starting winger or wide player, wide midfielder. But as you know, he had an ACL, so
Yes.
I think that's how we're seeing Bailey right now. And as you can see, he's not really affecting the game much.
Yeah, he was hooked at halftime. I thought he had a poor first half, to be honest, and somewhat culpable for that. You could say one of those goals where he fell asleep on Gordon, who crossed, and Isaac met with a wonderful finish. So
Unai
I
Emery, I
don't
think
know. Early days, though. Early days.
with Unai Emery, his midfielders works very hard, and I think that's not what Bailey's about. Even if he works hard for most of the match, he's gonna be caught sleeping at one point, and I think Diaby was signed to replace Bailey because if you notice when Unai Emery come, I think Bailey and Watkins was the two front player. I know it's
Right.
Watkins and Diaby, and
Ah.
and Buendia would be the wide midfielder,
So
but
you're
he's
saying Bailey's time is numbered at Aston Villa, then, Leon? Could we see
probably
a
probably
move before the transfer window slam shut?
not because of the injury. I wouldn't say, but I think it's a very crucial time for Leon Bailey. In with he has to prove himself before
This
Buendia
is a
has come
make or
back.
break season for him then, technically.
I think so. I think it's a make or break season, and you know that the English fans are very fickle. and they were starting to criticize Bailey based on his availability and his up and down performances. So I think it's a very crucial season for him coming
Very
up.
crucial indeed, and a crucial one for Aston Villa as well, just based on the financial outlay which the club has invested in, incoming signings. So it's crucial that Emery get his players up and running and start churning out some results as well, because we know the fans are very fickle, and it will only take a run of bad results for the clamoring for his head to start taking place, and pressure then gets put on players, and they are not as relaxed or as composed going into the various games. But early days, so we have to move, Leon. Early days, hard to really draw any conclusions thus far. It's just the first one of the season. I know, we're tempted just based on the first results, but we have to give it time. you know, many are slip between the cup and the lip. 37 more games to go, so
A long
you
way
know,
indeed.
a lot of football yet is left to be played. But we move over to Stamford Bridge. There seemed to be a rivalry developing between Liverpool and the Chelsea, especially when it comes to the transfer window. And Chelsea at this point seem to have the upper hand. I mean, signing up Moise Caicedo, and it
And
seems as
agreeing
if
with
they
Lavi.
will also be signing Lavia. I'm hearing that talks are in place, and Lavia has, basically made it clear that he's not willing to sign for Liverpool. Chelsea is the team of choice. So Liverpool there losing out on two of their big summer targets. And word on the street right now, our word in the transfer market is that Liverpool is a desperate team in need of a midfielder or two. So, whatever price they get may very well be an inflated price and may not necessarily be their first choice. It seems as if their first choice players are now on their way to Chelsea. And it was on that backdrop that the encounter took place there on Sunday. That one ending in a 1-1 draw. Give us your take, Leon. How did you see that one playing out?
I mean, I'll give my take on the transfer market for a little. I think Liverpool lost big time in this one because not only did they not get their player, but they showed their hand that they have 110 million.
Yeah, you see what I realized. This is not the Liverpool way. Usually, Liverpool go about their transfer business very quietly, and
Actually,
the media or the fans don't realize what is happening until the
too late.
very last moment. But these two transfers surprised me because it was very loud, and I was like, no, this isn't the Liverpool way. So I was quite surprised, to be honest, when I heard the big money splash on Caicedo. And I was saying, no, this isn't the Liverpool way. So, in a sense, I am somewhat relieved that we are not spending so much money on one single player. But at the same time, it does taint the image of the club to a large extent. And as I said, it's now exposed them in the transfer market. As you
Actually,
said, they've shown their hand. So players will be looking to, I mean, clubs will be looking to get as much from them for players as is financially possible. But it's the nature of the market, Leon. And if you want good players, it seems these days you have to be willing to spend, and not only spend, but spend big. Because at this moment, you're looking at a Chelsea midfield three. I mean, two of the top transfers in British transfer history will be in the Chelsea midfield. Caicedo, and of course, the World Cup winner, Enzo. And of course, possibly Lavia as well. Another big money signing somewhere in the region of 50 to 60 million pounds there, if when that transfer is finalized. So crazy stuff taking place over there at Chelsea.
crazy, crazy. Yeah, I mean, even Caicedo, I think he has like one, if not two, full seasons in the Premier League, and I think that transfer fee is unheard of,
21-year old as well.
and I'm starting to notice it. I don't think I want any like 100 million midfielders at my club, Rafa, because
Mm.
I think it's just unnecessary pressure, and you rarely see those signings.
Yeah, so right now, Rice over there at Arsenal is looking like a bargain, it seems. So, I mean, in this one window, you're looking at, two players, midfielders, and you could say defensive midfield players as well. It's not as if these guys are banging in goals. These are two defensive midfield players who are signing for clubs in excess of £100 million. Unheard of. Normally that's a transfer fee for strikers.
Means when the next striker, like next young striker, because look at Highland that Manchester United bought. 9 game, I think 9 goals for almost 75 million.
You have to catch them early, and that seems to be the case because if you wait until they bloom and blossom, you're
150.
looking closer to the 200 million mark than the 100 million. So, your scouting network has to be up and running, and you have to get into these young players before they actually break out big on the world scene. So it's almost as if you're paying for potential these days, untapped potential, so it's the nature of the market. And we see Brighton reaping some great rewards from their scouting network. So
Reaping
Brighton
from
is leading
Chelsea.
the way and showing us what needs to be done if you're gonna be competing at this level. Brighton isn't the biggest of clubs, but if they can draft in young players, inexpensive players, expose them, and then sell them on for in excess of $100 million. That has to be the model, while remaining competitive as well. So that's a key cog in terms of Brighton's, perspective or their philosophy. So it's not a case where they're just buying and selling and fighting off relegation every year. They are buying quality players, developing them while remaining, competitive in the league as well. We see them taking apart Luton over the weekend as well.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah, I think Brighton is spot on right now. I think Chelsea, for one, seems to be very intent of funding Brighton's development program, and I don't.
Well, indeed, that Brighton seems to be their favorite shopping grounds right now. So all Brighton has to do is keep churning out, those players because the next on the list may very well be Estopinian. He had a superb game over the weekend, or that young striker, Pedro and Ferguson as well. Those seem to be two players with some great potential. So they too, if they have any sort of breakout season this year, then they too may very well be on the sale block with a massive price tag attached to their name as well. But getting back on track, Leon, Liverpool, I would say holding on to
But dear
to
life,
to finish this one 1-1. Started off very well, was dominant in the first 30 minutes, I would say. But then towards the once Chelsea got that equalizer towards the latter end of the second half, it
was
was
all up.
all Chelsea the rest of the way. And I would say Liverpool should consider themselves lucky to come away from this one with a 1-1 draw. But the numbers don't lie. This is the seventh consecutive draw between these two teams. So if you were a betting man,
A
a
draw would be
draw
the
would
best.
have been the safe bet. So, this one played to the stats, so to speak.
I
But in
think
terms
your
of the gameplay, though, Leon, how did you see it?
I think your take is spot on. I think Liverpool came out gunning. I think they had more of the ball. Their movements were sharp. 1-2 passes. I think their midfield. You can see the quality of those players that they bought,
Mm,
and I think it's very shrewd signing from Liverpool. Those midfield players. I think for Chelsea also. I think even though it's early, I think we can conclude that it will be a much different Chelsea side from last year. I think Pochettino is
definitely.
Pochettino is getting his tactics across. You can see that the players are becoming more confident, and even the transfer, Jackson looks very good. I think Colwell looks very good. I think the new centre back from Monaco looks very good, and we know the quality of Reece James and Chilwell going forward.
Yeah, the only concern with Chilwell and Reece is that they seem to be made of glass.
Yeah, I think
Any touch they get injured because I even saw where Reece James was pulled early for a suspected knock,
no,
or,
I
or
think
to
on
protect him for any potential injuries as well.
Pochettino was asked that question in the post match, and he said he was tired, so that's why
Mm.
he took Reece James off. It's not about any injury, so we hope that it's just that, and because
I saw him holding something there, Leon. I was watching the game, and
well,
I'm
let's
not
see.
saying he's injured, but I'm saying I feel he felt something physically
Yeah,
outside of
not
just being tired. I'm not saying it's any major injuries, but his injury record isn't the best. And
and I
it
think
has significantly stifled his career in terms of development and establishing himself as one of the better right backs globally. Injury has definitely played a part in that regard. So that is always going to be in the back of the manager's mind, just based on history alone. And same with Chilwell as well. I thought both of them had a superb game. I thought the formation that Pochettino came out with suited them, especially as the game, you know, rode
Went on.
on. And you could see where the midfield dominance came into play, especially in the second half, as the Liverpool players tire from the exertions of the first half when they were pressing high on the Chelsea backline. So, it was a critical turning point though, Leon. I thought that Salah goal that was ruled offside could have changed the entire complexion of the game. And that somewhat spurred Chelsea to grab an equalizer. But
Yeah.
again, Liverpool came back. And personally, I thought Liverpool had a good shot for a penalty. I was
Uh,
watching the Brighton game.
handball. The
Yeah,
handball.
for the handball from Jackson. I was shocked this was not called to be a PK because I saw in the Brighton game where a player went for a slide tackle, the ball hit his elbow, the back of his hand. This
Yeah.
player knew nothing of the ball and it hit the back of his hand and it was called for a penalty. So to
I
see that one given and not the one in the Liverpool game, right now I'm not sure what a handball is in the EPL, to be honest with you. It,
mean,
it,
we
it,
know
se-
that.
it seems
I
as
mean,
if
we
it
know.
all depends on who the referee is.
Naturally, I think. I mean, we know that. We know that VAR is very inconsistent, and the handball is very much based on the referee and his opinion. And
And his
I,
interpretation.
when I saw them reviewing it on VAR, I think a penalty would have been called, but I also understand that. I mean, he couldn't really do anything about it, but it's understandably that a penalty would call it,
We've
but it would be
seen
a
those
shot.
given, Leon. We've seen those given, and we've seen those given many, many times. You
So
know, so
I think I wouldn't be upset if the penalty was called, and I wouldn't, and I wasn't upset that it wasn't, but I could understand from a Liverpool supporter that they might have been felt that they felt robbed, because
I
as if it
was
was
up.
my
I
team,
was shocked it wasn't called. As I said, just based on the fact that watching the Brighton game, I saw what I would say was a poor call. I'm saying that one shouldn't have been called because
yeah,
the player sliding and the ball hit his elbow, the back of his hand, without
and
him knowing much about the ball. In this case, Jackson was facing the ball, so he
yeah.
could have easily took his hand out of the way and not allow the ball to hit his hand. So it is what it is. But those
You
were
get
two of
some
the
you
critical points I thought in that game, which could have changed the course of that game significantly. Of course, Chelsea did have a goal themselves chalked off for offside as well. So that too was a significant play on their side, which that could have easily led to them leading the game. And I thought if they went ahead, it was curtains for Liverpool at that stage. But ah,
for sure. I think with the first the Salah goal that was ruled off, I think it, as you said, it was a critical moment because with Pochettino, it's a new team and going up, going behind 2-0 to Liverpool, it could have dented the energy of the supporters, and then Liverpool would only need to manage the game. But I think with the offside being called, I think it gave them life. And as you saw, once they took the lead, there was no going back.
yes,
Liverpool was
yes.
Liverpool was hanging on, and you can see where they're in need of a defensive midfielder because I
Yes,
think
yeah, definitely. An out and out destroyer type player, I would say, is required for sure, definitely. We, yeah, for me, looking at this game is gonna be a long season for Liverpool, to be honest with you. It's not gonna be any smooth sailing. It's gonna be a long
without the
uphill
defensive
fight.
without the
Well,
defensive mid
it's not even just the defensive midfield player. I think the defensive midfield player is one reinforcement which would definitely help the cause, but I think quality in depth is what is also required.
in the
Um,
midfield, in which
in
area?
in 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 just about all areas, because if you look at this game, Gagpo started in the midfield as one of the midfield three. That
Yeah.
pretty much left our only I would say, quality attacking change to be Darwin Núñez up front. So right away, you're shot right there, depending on how you employ your attacking players. Then, of course, in the midfield as well, if not Gakpo, then who? The chances are you might bring in a Jones, and then who is the sub? You're looking at the likes of a Elliott. Again, not much quality in depth there. And of
I
course,
mean,
defensively as well, you take a Trent out of the starting 11. Who is going to play right back?
Gomez, maybe.
You understand? So you're looking at a major step down
I,
once your starting 11 isn't present. Those coming off the bench just isn't of the same quality. So you're looking at a major step down for any possible substitution moves. And we saw where Salah was sulking because you're going to be taking off Salah. And who are you bringing on to replace him? Doak, a youngster who's barely played any minutes in the EPL. You understand what I mean? It's better you had just kept Salah on, just
I
for the
think
mere fact of who you're bringing on. The quality is just a major golfing class right there.
I think for the depth, I think the signing of the midfielder would then free up Gakpo from not starting in that midfield, and then you would have probably Gakpo and Nunes coming off the bench or any.
Combination of the three.
I agree with you with the Salah substitute. It didn't really make any sense to me, but
I
I'm not the
thought that was a
manager.
poor move. I would have taken off Louise at that stage, to be honest with you. That would have been the change that I would have made. I would have pulled Louise, but I would have kept Salah on and tried to force a goal. So you know, have a Salah Nunes link up,
Yeah.
and then you know, let's say a Elliot on the left hand side to replace Louise. But
But even
I'm not sure. Early days though. Early
yeah,
days.
but
But again,
even
as I
for
said, if the reaction, I mean, if it was just a normal sub, if Salah had just walked off as per normal, I
okay.
mean, chances are I wouldn't be having this conversation now. But it's the reaction. So
I
I'm gonna
mean,
have to
again,
be zooming in on that space. I'm gonna be watching that space very closely because
mm.
trouble might be in the camp, Leon. You know, they say you never see fire without smoke.
With
So
Salah, with those big name players, I mean, it's expected. They normally sulk, especially when the game is not won or they
I'm not
haven't
saying
gotten their
no.
goal.
I've seen it before, but I'm just hoping it doesn't escalate, into anything further. That you
I,
get on with it and you can bounce back in the next game and try to get your season up and running with a win. But I mean, based on how the game played out, I would have taken a point if I was in the Klopp's shoes at that point in time. Away from home with a resurgent Chelsea. Yeah, a point. I can't kill a point as the
so
first game
do
of the
you,
season.
what do you make of Trent's role? Because I think last season, I think he was more going into the midfield, but I think this season it's like he's reverted to the trend more out wide. I think he didn't go into the midfield as much as I expected, and
Mm.
most of the matches that I watch with Trent going into the midfield, I think he dictates that game very well from in the midfield. So it was quite shocking to see that you
He did make some inroads in the middle, to be honest, especially in the
not as
first half.
much, but
But
not as
I
much.
think
I
the
think.
formation that Chelsea was playing and the fact that they dominated the second
Midfield.
half, you didn't see much of that. Trent's role is based on possession. So if Liverpool doesn't have possession, Trent's role become nullified in that midfield. Liverpool has to maintain possession of the ball, and Chelsea did not allow them to do that. In the second half, especially, Enzo was running the show, so to speak. So that nullified any possible role that Trent could have played in that midfield. So that is the key thing with that system when it comes to Trent, Leon. If Liverpool doesn't have possession, then Trent's role in that position
Nullified.
is nullified completely. So possession is the key thing when it comes on. And I thought even in the first half, Liverpool gave away possession way too easy. They were not settled. They were not building methodically, but they were a bit rushing and a lot of misspaced passes where, it was quick turnovers and could have been hurt on a number of occasions from those quick turnovers. One minute you're going towards the Chelsea goal and a sloppy pass, you have to break and run in the opposite direction. We saw that on a number of occasions. But for Trent to be effective, Liverpool have to dominate games, especially in possession. And not usually, normally, Liverpool is a possession-based team, which also plays on the counter. So oftentimes when they press win the ball high up on the pitch, then they get into that counter attacking mode immediately. But when they're building, they build from the back in a possession-based type of system. But I expect that to be the case against weaker teams.
Yeah,
However,
most probably.
it's the bigger teams that they definitely need to work more, more work harder to gain that position. And that's where the midfield destroyer comes into play. You need that midfield maestro
Yeah,
to
you need
break
more
the play
fight in it
and
first.
recycle the ball. So, who to say? I mean,
Sure.
bodies are there, but as I said, it's just quality that's
Yeah,
lacking. So, but the bodies are there, but quality bodies is what is needed. But as I said, it's the first game of the season. We can't
I
read
read too
too
much
much
into
into
it.
these things. 37 more games to go, so we can't get ahead of ourselves and get carried away. But Chelsea definitely looks to be a better team. And as time progresses, I mean, they can only get better with quality signings, a decent enough coach, and once results are coming and the players get more accustomed to each other, then Chelsea may yet be a force to be reckoned with in this season. Win the title, no. Top four
Um,
finish, I think they will give a good account of themselves in terms of finishing the top four.
because I think top five will be getting Champions League this
Top
year,
five.
if
Well,
not
there you go.
mistaken.
So it is a fight for the top five spots then. But yeah, it's gonna be a dog fight to be honest. I think Liverpool will be in the mix as well. But it's gonna be a dog fight. Results are going to be critical, and what you find is that these teams are going to cancel each other out. So, you might find a Chelsea drawing with a Liverpool, then a Liverpool going on to, let's say, beat a Newcastle, then Newcastle beat a Chelsea, Man U draw with a Liverpool. So it's gonna be a very up and down season. I don't think you're gonna get any one team being totally dominant. The teams are gonna drop points and pick up points, and it may boil down to the team which goes on the best run for any prolonged period that's gonna set themselves apart. But it's gonna be a tough season. I can see it already. Very tough season for Liverpool, to be honest with you, and it's gonna have to be a workman-like Liverpool. There won't be any easy games. So I can only hope for the best and hope that before the transfer window slam shut, then they can get in some quality reinforcement. I think they need at least 2 to 3 quality
Signings.
players, but the
Yeah.
problem is finding them and finding them for the right price. So
Most
we'll
clubs
just
will
have to
be,
wait and see how this one plays out, Leon. But yeah, 1-1, I would say a fair result for Liverpool. Chelsea may feel they could have won it just based on that second half dominance and the sort of opportunities they carved out. I thought Jackson did quite well for his first game and could have been on the score sheet. So he looks very lively. And I expect him to get a few goals this season. I don't expect him to go over 20 goals, but anywhere between 10 to 15 goals, he should consider that a very good season.
yeah, and I think his hold-up play is what surprises me the most because I think everyone knows about his speed and his threatening behind, but when he comes short for the ball, I think he's linking up well with his midfielders, and I think probably we can expect a good season from Modric and probably Sterling this year. So I think Chelsea should be a lot better, as we said, plus Caicedo to be added to that midfield with.
Lavia as well, possibly.
So
And I'm
I
also
think
hearing them being linked to Tyler Adams also.
I think that fell through because they're going for Lavia. So
Oh, okay. I guess Tyler Adams was more like a third choice option.
we see. So as you said, it should be a very interesting season, a lot of up and downs, and as you said, a lot of the teams are closer than a lot of people think, and it will just
Yes.
be a dog fight to see who's the best, and we'll see. We'll be here to cover it all.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's early days. Early days, viewers and subscribers. We'll be here for all 38 games, and we're just past week one. We know week two coming up, and we have some mouth-watering fixtures on the horizon as well. I know for sure Man U will be looking to take on Spurs, and I believe Newcastle has a fairly Man City, Newcastle facing Man City. So those are two sumptuous games that we'll be previewing on Thursday. And the EPL is already up and running, and the games are coming thick and fast. And any points drop now could be detrimental at the end of the season. So stay with
Uh,
us, viewers and subscribers. We are here for you. We are here to cover the EPL, and each game week we'll be previewing and we'll be breaking it down. We just like to continue to thank you and encourage you to hit that subscription bell. And of course, if you have already subscribed, then the best thing you can do for us is to share the channel and help us to gain some more subscribers. But of course, leave us your comments in the comment section and let us know your thoughts on how you saw the opening weekend of this season's EPL. I just like to thank Leon for coming on board this evening and sharing his thoughts and his views with us. Any final word for us, Leon?
well, I think you covered it mostly. I just think that we should be very, very excited because football is back. I think the Man U Spurs match should be interesting, and the
Yeah, man,
Newcastle
you getting a 1-0 victory over Wolves earlier today.
luck, I would say. I think it was a very poor game by Manchester United, but at the end of the day, it's the first game, a lot of cobwebs. So
Mm.
hopefully it's a one-off performance, and it was a good 3 points for a bad performance, I would say.
Well, they say that's the mark of champions, when you play poorly but still come away with 3 points. So early days yet. And 3 points in the bag in August is just as good as 3 points in the bag come May. So on to the next one. But viewers and subscribers, thank you again for tuning in to us. Until next time, this is Rafa signing off.